So we should take off from where you stopped with regard to the banking sector.
Yeah.
Let's like
I think we were just talking about the contradiction in higher deposits but not transmitting into credit, and also how the higher liquidity is not transmitting into lower rates because the 10-year RBI bond is way above the repo rate currently. So these contradictions is something which is keeping people in the finance ministry awake, including the RBI at night, because this is something which doesn't fit into any economic model. Because the normal transmission is expected, maybe consumption may not have an uptick, but at least interest rates should come down as you increase liquidity in the system. So where is all the money going, and why are banks just sitting on it? If they don't have a place to lend, then at least they would go and park it with the government, thereby reducing bond rates. That doesn't seem to be happening. So banks should be sitting on cash. The mutual fund industry is sitting currently on its highest level of cash in almost multiple decades. So there seems to be a wait and watch in the economy across sectors with respect to any fresh investment. And I think this is where the final contradiction comes in on the success, or shall we say final failure of the PLI scheme, because whenever a new sector gets a PLI policy published, a lot of the investment goes in there, and then it is withdrawn once the PLI ends because consumption is down. So this success of the PLI, which basically means a subsidy for the costing of a product for the period of the PLI scheme, seems to merit a review by the government on how, on a long-term basis, such schemes can work, thereby keeping consumption up.
that is what I was. You just spoke my mind. I just wanted to ask you whether a type of PLI will be available, just like we have interest subvention in the banks. A type of PLI would it be possible to be provided to most of the industries, which are startups, which are growing, which are facilitating the growth of Indian economy? Could the government not introduce a concept of a PLI, but not a, inverted commas? It is not a PLI, but it's a concept of a PLI providing benefits to the manufacturers.
Well, like I told you, they need to come up with something long term, because these 3 year, 5 year PLI schemes work for those 3 years, 5 years, but then they just fall off the cliff as far as consumption is concerned, because once the scheme is done, the prices correct upwards, and consumers, being very price sensitive in this economy, just drop off. Like I said, majority drop off, but a few brave ones borrow and they continue. And that is not good. I mean, you borrow to spend, it is never good in the long term for the economy, because at some point that is going to become bad debts. So, a subprime in India is being built today and may become something serious 12 to 20 years down the road. But since the majority of the people are still the kind who would rather not spend if they have to borrow, we are still safe, but the trend for the younger generation seems to be less savings, more borrowings, higher consumption.
Will the US, China, and look at most of the governments have been subsidizing their products. Illegally, they have been subsidizing products, though you have a WTO. And that is the conflict, and therefore we have been having these extended talks on multipolar, direct polar, all these kind of polarizing words. So, do you think that we should indirectly give an option to the banks to subsidize this PLI, which will be like a Chinese wall in the future, so it will protect the government from exposure?
I don't think terming subsidies as illegal works, but Yeah, I mean, every country, including India, in the past has been guilty of doing some maneuvering in reaching subsidies to their various exporters, hidden or otherwise, because the export market is a brutal market. And like I told you, the US goes to extreme lengths to make sure that their large industries, especially in defense and pharma, are well taken care of across the globe. So, being as it is for every country in the planet, with shady subsidies that they all provide, uh, extending the PLI, a poor country like India, where the per capita income is so low, is something I don't think there is space in the budget. I mean, this is it, and not anything more is the message from the government. And they have shown that with this support, it is possible for our production to have a massive uptick, because from a importer of toys and mobiles and other electronic goods, including arms, we are now net exporters. So all this has happened in the last 7 8 years. So it is possible, but since our per capita is very low, and the addressable population with higher per capita would be approximately 250 to 300 million people, uh, if the government were to make its policies just targeting these 250 300 million people and not the 1.4 which it keeps talking about, I think there will be better direction of consumption related policies, and also credit for the people outside this 250 300 million people can be better targeted, because they are vulnerable. And the government has to some extent done this bifurcation by continuing to take care of 80 crore people, almost 800 million people since COVID, by giving them free food for almost now 6 years. So they have understood this divergence, and that India cannot function at one policy level. So the 800 million have a different policy, then the remaining 600 million to be divided as 300 million, and the other 300 million who are looking to break into this higher 300 million. Then, of course, there is the super rich and the ultra super rich. For them, nothing really matters. I mean, you have a policy for them, you don't have a policy for them, it doesn't matter.
Would you mean that instead of PLI, let's leave the PLI apart. Would it be possible that suppose we used to have what is known as tax holidays in the olden days? Like we also had a tax holiday period some time ago, I think, I do not know when. So suppose I'm giving you, you're a startup and you are trying to build up something like a drone which will help the army, or the drone, or they are looking at the, traversing from Chennai to Calcutta in a 600 something, a hovercraft type of thing, which has been a startup provided backed by Indian Chennai IIT. Suppose you give them a tax holiday for 7 years, 8 years, no tax, and even after they make profits, that additional losses of R&D, all that can be set off in reverse proportion. And would that be a possibility of increasing their growth and development?
It is possible. Already they do have some years of tax free for all startups. And the tax holidays are in the form of either reduced GST or deferred GST in the industrial policies of the respective state governments. Now, for the central government to introduce something through the budget again in the Income Tax Act, again, like I said, there is no headroom left in the budget. I mean, we are maxed out, and this government would rather consolidate their fiscal deficit from 4.5% to 3 than keep it at 4.5% for indefinite.
Oh, okay. So we are looking, the scenario is not bleak, but it is not as hyped up bright as it is.
The government has to sell itself to win votes.
There is something which is moving.
Yeah, definitely.
But that momentum is not as fast as we can expect it from.
You can't expect an elephant to run fast.
Yeah.
It can only lumber around.
It's not a horse.
It's not a
Yeah,
horse.
though it has four legs, it's still not a horse.
And definitely not a fire-breathing dragon.
It's not a fire-breathing dragon also. So I think it's a sum and substance that we need something different happening in India for it to come out of this morass.
Yes.
And to go to the next trajectory, some kind of thinking
Definitely.
process has to be implemented.
Yes, and tomorrow being the budget, we all hope something clicks there.
Thank you.